Let's take a look at the current turmoil in energy markets from a longer-term perspective. We are joined by Helen Thompson, a professor of political economy at the University of Cambridge. Now, her books include Disorder, Hard Times in the 21st Century. It's a sweeping economic history. It focuses, though, on shocks that have faced Western democratic societies this century. But she touches on the effect of energy shortages and energy price jumps over the decades. Professor Thompson, thanks very much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Your book is incredible. It covers so much ground. But going back over almost a century, you say that oil price jumps have been crucial catalysts in inflation. So, I mean, we think of energy as playing a smaller and smaller part in our economy in terms of total GDP, but it's still important, is it, when energy prices go up?
Yeah, I don't think you can really measure the importance of energy to our economies by the percentage of GDP that they represent for the whole economy, because in a fundamental sense, all economic activity relies on energy, and in the modern world, that means that fundamentally economic activity fundamentally relies on fossil fuel energy, and of the fossil fuels, oil is still the largest. And although there clearly is some kind of energy transition going away towards renewables, it isn't really shifting the amount of oil that is being consumed in the world economy.
Because, yeah, we do know that we see these graphs and the renewable energy for decades, yet it looks like will only be a pretty small part of the energy mix.
Absolutely. And what we can see in particular is that in the transportation sector, and without the transportation sector, great chunks of the world economy, including our ability to feed ourselves, don't work. The transportation sector still fundamentally relies on oil.
I mean, some of the points that you've been making lately, and you touch on in your book, Russia is, like it or not, an energy and commodity superpower, and the reality is we're going to have to find some kind of accommodation with it, or the Western countries will.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to change certain facts about Russia, certainly while we live in the energy world in which we do, is that Russia is a large exporter of oil, it's been a large exporter of gas, and it's been a significant exporter of coal. And that's before we even get into the fact that over the last sort of decade or so, Russia's also turned itself into a large-scale wheat exporter, in fact, the single most significant wheat exporter in the world. So if you declare an economic war, which in part we in the West have done, and in part we've not been able to do because of Russia's commodity power, that is a really significant change to have taken place. And I think that what we can see thus far is that energy sanctions haven't actually changed Putin's behavior in any meaningful way. And as the war has gone on, the economic disruption that comes both from the war itself and from Russia's ability to blockade Ukraine's ports, stopping Ukraine selling its agricultural exports to the world, is having some really devastating consequences, particularly in the global south.
And of course, the paradoxical effect is that Mr. Putin is doing just fine with this run-up in energy prices, run-up in commodity prices. He's making more than he did before the invasion.
Absolutely. Is that what we can see is that Russia's revenues in absolute terms have gone up, even though Russia's ability to sell energy to European countries, certainly its ability to sell oil and coal, has been significantly reduced. But Russia is far too important to Asian countries in particular, where energy imports are concerned, for Asian countries like China and India to turn their back on Russia.
Henry Kissinger, the longtime former leading light in American foreign policy, you probably saw, said not too long ago, we've got to strike some kind of a deal. And he suggested Ukraine will have to give up territory. He said this war can't go on and on. What was your reaction when you heard him say that?
I think that the war is an incredibly difficult thing to think about, and I think that from Ukraine's point of view, it's really morally simply unacceptable to expect it to give up territory to Russia, not only given the invasion itself, but what Ukrainians are being subject to when they're captured by Russians or held hostage by Russians. I think, though, that if we look at the impact of this on the rest of the world, and I mean by that particularly outside Europe, it's also incredibly difficult to expect people in the poorest countries in the world simply to say, well, we just have to put up with this scale of economic catastrophe from their point of view, because there's a set of principles at stake about the organization of nation states in Europe. This is a real tragedy in the sense that both sides have very, very compelling arguments. And I mean by both sides why Ukraine shouldn't give an inch and why, in the end, some kind of accommodation will have to be reached with Russia. And I think that what's very difficult to see at the moment still is how things play out militarily. And in the end, I think, given that neither side has got any incentive to give up, then the terms of the peace, if that's what it will be, and it's more likely in some sense, I think, to be sort of a stalemate of some kind, are going to be only settled once one side gets themselves a really significant military advantage and the other side looks in a very difficult position. And I think that we're not really there yet.
And that, of course, implies yet more violence and tragic loss of life. I wanted to just touch on one theme I could. I'm getting off energy here. One rather disturbing theme, I thought, in your book. You suggest, or you entertain the theory, that all democratic societies may have a ticking clock. We assume a liberal democracy can last forever, but you say there are reasons to fear that there could be a lifespan for a democracy.
Yeah, I think that if we look historically, we can see that all forms of government have had lifespans, that they rise and that they fall, sometimes over very long periods of time. So if we think that this isn't going to happen to democracies, we need some reasons to believe that democracy is very different. Representative democracy, liberal democracy is very different than any form of government that has come before. And certainly there are people who would make arguments as to why that is the case. But I'm not sure that they're particularly persuasive, particularly when we look at the way in which really profound changes in economic and geopolitical conditions play their part in these cycles playing themselves out through time. I think, though, one doesn't have to be unduly pessimistic, in part because the middle period of forms of government can last for very, very long periods of time, centuries. And at the same time is that if the cyclical way of thinking about this is right, then democracies might rise, they might stagnate and then fall, and then they might begin again.